As Russia's war against Ukraine approaches its third anniversary, Kyiv is having to innovate for its defense. It's emerging as a testing ground for high-tech, cutting-edge drone warfare. Aerial and sea drones have already destroyed much of Russia's Black Sea fleet, but on land, drones are still in their infancy. DW's Max Zander reports.
These are ground drones. They could soon be a common sight on battlefields around the world. They can drive to enemy positions and blow themselves up. They can lay anti-tank mines and take supplies to frontline positions. They're easy to drive and keep soldiers out of danger. These men from the Khartia Brigade test and modify ground drones produced by civilian startup companies.
This
drone has already laid more than 180 mines and has proved itself quite well. As you can see, it has returned. Those other drones that you've seen, they can act as kamikaze or do logistics jobs for small loads.
Various brigades across Ukraine are testing such ground drones. It's not a centrally coordinated process. In the Donetsk region, a logistics unit belonging to the 28th Brigade is working with a multi-purpose land drone. The mission needs a vehicle operator, a drone pilot to track its progress, and a commander. The drone can lay mines, and it just takes a few minutes to fit on a stretcher to carry a wounded soldier. They tell us this concept still has yet to be proven on the battlefield. They've been using this drone for 6 months, replacing soldiers carrying stuff on foot through dangerous areas.
It can carry 120 kilograms and move across the terrain we see at a speed of 10 kilometers per hour. This is much faster than infantry with the same weight could go across fields.
The unit is using the drones in the field, helping to take about a ton of cargo to frontline positions each week. They take some of the burden and risk from soldiers making the trip on foot. Back with the Khartia Brigade. This man, call sign Rest, is working on a drone. Feedback to the manufacturers only goes so far. Often the soldiers make crucial modifications themselves.
I'm making a repeater right now, thanks to which we can work at a greater distance on the front. I've soldered it. Now I'm just going to check if everything worked, if I did everything correctly. Everything is lit. It works, so it'll all be fine.
But sometimes extra distance isn't enough. There's an arms race going on, especially when it comes to jamming radio signals.
If electronic warfare blocks the signal, that's it. The drone won't reach the destination, won't deliver ammunition, won't be able to evacuate the wounded or perform any other combat mission. It will simply stop in the middle of the field and stand there, and won't be of any use.
Of course, these Ukrainian land drones are not the only ones in this war. The Russian state is developing such technology too. With the resources it has, it's making more and doing it faster than the Ukrainians. But these soldiers are confident.
The main thing is how tactically we use them. If we use them wisely, they will work. If we don't use them wisely, they won't work. But for the most part, they will replace people in many critical areas.
Drones have already changed warfare in the air. Now they're doing it on the ground.
Joining me now for more is Ulrike Franke. She's a senior policy fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations in Paris and an expert on drones and military robots. Thanks for being with us, Ulrike. Give us a sense of just how important drones and robots are in the Ukraine war.
They're really very important. It's rare that one system is kind of war deciding, combat deciding. So I wouldn't say that they have kind of decided or are deciding the war. But without drones, uncrewed systems, whether they're in the air, naval systems or ground drones, as we just saw, I wouldn't want to imagine Ukraine's defense. So they're very relevant. They're used in high numbers on both sides and really are making a difference.
As our report just showed, Ukraine is putting a lot of effort into developing robots for use on the ground. What role have they played in the war so far?
So far, I would say that ground robots, ground drones haven't played the most important role yet. They're just coming onto the battlefield, and they are much less sophisticated than the systems we have in the air and to some extent on the sea. You need to understand that the aerial environment is kind of the easiest to operate in. Not that it's that easy, but still the easiest. Then comes the sea, underwater, surface vessels, and then the ground, because on the ground you have many hurdles, you have many things you need to go around. You can just, get stuck in the mud. And so ground systems are being used now, as we just saw. They will eventually make a difference, but for now, I'd say they're not the most decisive things. But, as we're just seeing, laying mines is something that they can certainly do and help with.
A lot of effort is being put into also countering drone threats, of course. How hard has it become to deter a threat by drones?
It's a real cat and mouse game at the moment in Ukraine, and ever since the beginning. You may remember at the very beginning of the war, these Turkish-built Bayraktar TB2 drones were kind of seen as the system to fight back Russian advances, and they were incredibly useful. And then after a while, they almost disappeared. And the reason is counter-drone systems. You always have this development where a drone is useful, and then a counter-drone system is built to counter it. And sometimes the drone gets modified, or indeed it can't be used any longer. And so this cat and mouse game has been ongoing. It's one of the reasons why we see so much innovation in Ukraine, in Russia happening right now, because you need to constantly adapt. And so, some systems you can no longer use, some systems can still make a difference. It kind of goes back and forth. And that explains why innovation is so fast and why the development is so fast.
Well, there's clearly a learning process going on, particularly in Ukraine with all of this. Would you say that the use of drones and robots has significantly changed war dynamics already?
Yes, to some extent. So there's certain things you just no longer do if there are many drones in the sky. So on some parts of the front line, you basically have what we call a transparent battlefield, because there's so many drones in the sky. You have 24-hour surveillance. You can't mass troops anymore, right? You can't mass a lot of equipment, because if you do that, you become an immediate high-value target and you're being targeted. Now, of course, there are other parts of the front line where you have so much counter-drone systems, jamming, electronic warfare in particular, the drones can no longer fly. So here the situation is different. But I think it has changed operations, organizations to some extent already.
So just briefly, how do you see drone and robot technology shaping the future of warfare? This question comes up all the time, I'm sure, for you.
Yeah, I mean, the honest answer, of course, is we don't know. And there are many possible futures of war and drone warfare. I mean, I do expect any future war to have a high number of drones, but it may not look exactly like it does in Ukraine. We shouldn't forget that in Ukraine, a lot of initially civilian drones are being used. That explains also the very high number of drones in use. And that may not be the case in another confrontation if the geography, the climate is different. If, for example, China, which after all produces these civilian drones predominantly, may be involved in a war and may not deliver them to one of the actors. And so it's a bit difficult to extrapolate, but drones, anti-drone systems, they will play a role. We need to be prepared for these scenarios.
Ulrike, thank you very much for your insights. That was Ulrike Franke, Senior Policy Fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations in Paris.
Thank you.